This is Mile High.
Do I want to tell the story or do I want to show the message?
You've got a lot of work to do between Mile High.
The time has come where we can know
we have a responsibility, an ethical and moral responsibility.
We have to do it better in order to move people along.
Up, down, inside out.
If you get your mind right, it is not. It is a receiver of thought. Because love is my first technique.
it's now time for the show.
Welcome to the Mile High Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Daniel Knowles, and I'm at 5,280 feet where you will be in September. Oh, wow, Mile High 13. Don't let the 13 scare you. Join us on higher ground for Mile High 13. And wherever you are watching this or listening to this from, whether it be Spotify or iTunes or on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss any Mile High tick. And so you also remember to reserve your seats. Go to riseuptomilehigh.com and you can get all the details for this year's Mile High event. I am so thrilled to be here on this podcast with DC2B, Eliza. She is a fifth quarter student at Sherman College. She's originally from Central Kentucky, and she is at Sherman. She was brave, fired up enough to enter the student speaker contest and was selected by the team. And she was just extraordinary at Mile High Noon. And thank you for joining us today on the podcast, Eliza.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, you were early on in school and you just dove right in, said, I'm going to enter this contest. What gave you the spark to do that?
I had heard about Mile High and I had heard about the student contest in previous years. Different students and friends who I'd known had applied and were previous speakers. I had heard about it and I had thought, okay, let me wait until I've been in school a little bit longer, close to graduation. So it was in the back of my mind and it came up. And I saw it on social media, and a lot of the other students and friends I knew were like, you should just go for it and apply. And I had to think about my topic. I wanted it to be good. And then I just applied for it and went for it and then got accepted.
The team loved you, and it was awesome to have you there. So before we talk about further ahead things, how did you find your way from Central Kentucky to Sherman College?
Great question. It was a journey filled with a lot of blessings, filled with the right timing of meeting the right people, seeing the chiropractic things. I originally, when completed my undergrad in two other seemingly unrelated degrees, and then it was my last semester actually of undergrad, and I realized that I didn't want to do that, the career that I picked. Nothing wrong with it, just learning more about it. I was like, I want to see what else is out there. During the same time was kind of when 2020 events happened, which was also another blessing in disguise. And I wanted to look into a field where I could help people help themselves, essentially. So a friend, family friend said, why don't you come shadow my chiropractor? I had never been to a chiropractor before that. I didn't really know what a chiropractor was. And I went and shadowed him in his office, loved it. And then I wanted to continue shadowing different offices, kind of see more of the career of what a chiropractor could be. And then found another couple in Kentucky who I shadowed and actually worked for a year. And they were Sherman graduates. And then it was at that point that the chiropractic career kind of turned into that chiropractic calling of this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Awesome. Awesome. Was there a particular thing that made the lights go off?
A part of it was seeing people get adjusted for like whatever issue they came in for, whether it was a specific symptom or just general wellness, you could tell that each person left the office different, kind of like brighter almost. And then I started to receive really specific upper cervical care and tonal care combined. And before I really knew more about chiropractic, I didn't realize how unique that was of the combination. And once I started receiving specific care and I could see the changes in my own health, that was kind of the light bulb switch, as you could say, is to see, wow, there really is power to this profession.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, isn't it? And then why Sherman College at that point?
Yeah, when I gone and shadowed the first chiropractor, he basically kind of first introduced me to the philosophy and to the green books. And he had first told me, okay, if you're going to go to any school, you can do whatever your decision is. But I would look at Life University in Georgia, and then I would look at Sherman College in South Carolina. And I went to both of the weekends that those schools host, doing the tours and everything. And it was when I toured Sherman, it was a smaller school, something I was more familiar with. But it really was Sherman was where the philosophy, the really people were talking the tick. And that was really the primary reason of why I said, okay, Sherman's it.
Cool, cool. So now, going back, you had never attended Mile High before. We'll go deeper into the student experience, but you'd never attended Mile High before. So you're speaking at this thing. You know you're going to be on stage, but you don't know what the event's like. What was that showing up, and what was your experience at Mile High?
It was so cool. I think a part of it was because I'd heard of it and I knew of it, and it was exciting because it sounded like, a bunch of people who were on the same page of the philosophy and the science and the art of actual chiropractic, who were out of the Sherman bubble and were practicing doctors, all getting together and being behind the same mission of straight chiropractic. So that idea in and of itself, I was like, okay, I'm in, like, let's do this. And then applying for it and realizing that I was accepted and I was going to speak. Part of it, when I first learned, I was nervous, but then another part of me was, well, you've never been before, so let's make the most of the moment, do your thing, practice it, but then just go just for the experience.
Uh-huh. Cool. And had you been to any kind of large, I don't know, had you been to any other kind of large chiropractic gathering before that point?
I had been to kind of different seminars since I started school. So in that like technique capacity, and then before starting school and during school, like I've been kind of surrounded by the philosophy, but this was really the first non-technique focused event that I had been to. Yeah.
I didn't know if you had been to Sherman Lyceum or things like that. That's why I was asking. Maybe you had or hadn't at that point. So
I had been to Lyceum the year before I started school. I was able to go, and then I've been going to Lyceum. But yeah, that's probably the only other larger.
So was it cool to be around other chiropractors? Was it cool to see the speakers? Was it good to see other students from other places? What was exciting for you?
I would say in general, just kind of the whole experience was exciting. I loved hearing all the different speakers because we all had, like, it sounded kind of the same mission and idea behind chiropractic. But each speaker kind of had their own specialty, had their own topic, and they made it their own. So it was still diverse in that sense. Mm-hmm. And then seeing the other students from other schools and a couple from Sherman as well, but being able to really be in the presence and kind of talk with and network with other students and doctors, that in and of itself was an experience.
Awesome. That's really great to hear. So now let's go circle back to the student experience. Now we have people that are listeners that are lay people, public, we have chiropractors that listen, we have students that listen. So let's get into like, you have gone to chiropractic, you decide to make this career change, you walk into Sherman College and Sherman campus as like a new student. What are some things that like get you excited to be there, to be in this path of being a chiropractic student at this point?
So for me, starting on Sherman, really just like first quarter, honestly, just the first week of school. Sherman is very welcoming to their students, to say the least. So it was a smaller school, and I kind of felt it really just felt like a second home right away, which was awesome. And then I would say like the different classes and the different teachers, like especially first quarter with philosophy one, being able to both hear, learn the information, and then also just like out of conversations with other students on campus, and we get into like different debates and talks and stuff like that. That was really with Sherman of, while we didn't, of course, we're not all going to agree on everything, being able to be in that space of talking about chiropractic, that was really what was it.
Excellent, excellent. So, and what was it, you said your chiropractor, talked about green books and philosophy to some degree, to whatever degree you might be, with your field doc. But then in school, it's a different thing. You have your first philosophy classes. What were some of the light bulbs that came off in class that just excited you to hear and to maybe tune up, this is the right career path for me?
I think one of the main ones was the chiropractic communications class that we have early on in school. And that's being able to explain chiropractic, explain your chiropractic story, and really have those light bulb moments of taking your life experiences and other people's experiences and translating it into, okay, that's nice, but how do you take that and educate other lay people about chiropractic?
Mm-hmm. Cool. Now here you are, you're fifth quarter, so you've got a decent amount of school left, but you probably have some hunger or enthusiasm for, oh, I'm going to get out and do this. What excites you about actually going out and practicing?
That's a good question. Coming into chiropractic, the kind of like the logical side of things of, I love the idea of being able to work for myself with an office. So like the career parts of things was something that I can definitely see and enjoy in the future. The other thing is the couple who I interned and worked with in Kentucky, Blaze and Alexis Verity, they as mentors really helped translate what the philosophy looked like in practice. So knowing like there's a, like in class, like there's the theory, but then the actual hands-on portion of seeing people's lives change with principled chiropractic, I can't wait to do that when I graduate and start working.
Excellent. That's so exciting. Now, you'd think that, there's a certain aspect of growth being in the classroom, right? So we all, to get a DC degree, you have a lot of classroom hours, but what about mentoring, connecting, feeling supported by people outside the classroom?
So outside of the classroom and in the world, like I think shadowing different offices and getting outside of the Sherman, like the school bubble, and getting into the real world bubble, just shadowing different offices and talking with other chiropractors who are doing the thing that you can like envision yourself doing in the future, that type of mentorship. And I think when people say mentorship, I think like as students, we can get kind of intimidated about it. But to me, it really is about community and connection and trying to figure out, okay, how are they living their lives? That's like awesome. And how do we start doing the baby steps of now in school and kind of like getting the ball rolling rather than 14th quarter and then trying to figure out, what I want to do. Start mentoring now, which can be just as simple as shadowing offices, communicating, talking to people, attending seminars and events like Mile High. Like that's really where the community part of it is at.
Okay. Yeah. And did you find that when you went to various programs, whether it be Lyceum, technique programs, Mile High, did you find that doctors were ready to answer questions and be supportive?
Yes, I think because a part of it was being prepared and being open to hear things from other doctors. Our Lyceum is a really big one where, everyone's kind of joining together for chiropractic there. So Lyceum is a big one. And then also some of the seminars that I've been to, a lot of them are approach based rather than full techniques per se. So not every doc might fit that description. But definitely outside of school, I wouldn't say there's more, I think, than people realize, but it has to take that kind of the expression of we have a personal responsibility to our health. We also, especially as students now, we have a personal responsibility to how we're going to practice in the future. And that definitely starts with mentoring. And there are definitely connections in the different seminars and events that I've been to. But you got to put the work in and you have to kind of really look for it and search it out.
Okay. So if you were a student, which you are, and in a student mindset, because doctors get a little bit distance from the student experience. I mean, we all remember it, but we also all forget it, right? So, and some of us want to forget it, but what are the things that, hey, docs, these are the kind of areas that students need help with. Like we have these questions, and if you see us at a program, these are the kinds of things that we'd really appreciate knowing more about.
I think that a lot of students might think to technique first or the art portion of it. But with it being the three-legged stool of having the science and the philosophy part to it, I think that a lot of times students, they hear philosophy and then they think, okay, well, how do I take the ideas and theory and translate it into practice? So I think something that a lot of students are searching for is the practicality and the communication skills that come with knowing your information and then being able to share it with others. Because we with the school bubble, we can get very technical with our words, but out in the real world of the office, you have to be able to use analogies and translate it for people to understand it. So I think the patient education, just communicating, I think that's something that a lot of students are looking for.
Mm-hmm. Have you found that doctors are ready to be there for you and to help? Do you find are you surprised that doctors are there to help?
I think that I haven't necessarily been surprised by it. Because I think that a lot of the docs that I've been able to connect with are more philosophically grounded. So for me, at least, I think that being prepared almost of having certain questions and really just being open to, hey, I don't necessarily the idea of service. As a student, I don't really want something from you specifically. I just want to help serve you so then you can kind of help me. So I personally haven't, there's been some dead ends of doctors where, they reach out or they're just not as receptive, but that's okay because that means that you're just another phone call away or another taking the initiative to find another doctor who can really, who's open and willing to help.
Mm-hmm. I understand. So what are some things, that you feel are the things that people need to know when they're thinking about going to chiropractic school, now that you're in the midst of it, if someone was listening to this that's considering going to chiropractic school, what are some things you'd want them to know?
The thing that comes to mind when you ask that is when thinking about whether or not you want to go to chiropractic school, I personally am all about being prepared and doing your research. So definitely visit the schools. Talk to people, talk to different docs, get like plugged in and connected before you even start school. And then the other thought that comes to mind is, we all have this innate intelligence within us, and it helps us heal and live and just do our thing. And I think that people need to listen to innate in themselves more often. So not like, if you're thinking about doing school and it's on your mind, it's there in your mind and on your heart for a reason. So don't shy away from it. Continue to look into it, dive in, ask the questions. And then if you do decide to go to school, and when you decide to go to school, I would kind of continue that kind of like heart posture through school. So definitely I would say try not to get like pigeonholed into one thing. I would again, keep your options open, keep your ideas and conversations flowing, and the right people at the right time will be there for you.
Now, you are, and correct me if I'm wrong, Vice President Zeta Phi Chi at Sherman. Am I correct about that?
Mhm.
Okay, so can you share about that experience and what you really appreciate about it?
Yeah. So with Zeta Phi Chi, for me, being like a younger quarter and still having that responsibility within the organization, I joined second quarter, so pretty early on when first starting school. And with the Zetas, the really cool thing with us is we're a lifelong organization. So it's not just a school thing. It is a lifelong kind of, again, like that sense of community and connecting with doctors who have graduated and are practicing. There is that lifelong sister bond where whatever happens, or if you do a different technique or whatever your jam is, like you have that group of women who will be there for you in that community. If you had kind of told me, okay, when we first started versus now, even though it's been a short amount of time being a part of it, the personal development growth that I've experienced just through Zeta Phi Chi has been amazing. I came into school knowing a little bit about the philosophy and really having a vision. And with Zeta Phi Chi and having all of us together doing and working on the same mission, you can make that exponentially growth faster than what you could ever do on your own.
Well, collaboration tends to be a good thing. So you mentioned before we started, I asked you what's your favorite quote. You said your favorite, Dr. Casey Huckabee, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Your life is your medicine. What you want should match the truth of what you do, who you are, and how you live. Why is that an important one to you?
I really, really enjoy that quote because I think that actions speak louder than words. So again, kind of taking the theory and then applying it. Especially when it comes to people's health, I think that people have their goals and they have their ideas and they have their aspirations, which is awesome, but those things can't happen without taking action on them. And that quote really just kind of signifies the consistency and integrity that comes with living and having values, but then also being able to express them and live them out.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful, wonderful. So we haven't been in clinic yet. We're in the student experience. You get invited to speak on stage at Mile High. You've got, several hundred, 300-400 doctors there, students, and you're getting on stage. The energy is pretty high. What are you thinking when you're there?
I, the most nervous that I was when I was getting mic'd up, probably like 5 minutes before I was supposed to go on. So that was nerve-wracking in a very exciting way. And then when being introduced and announced and walking up on stage, the nervousness just kind of just like disappeared. Like still excited, but walking up onto stage and then seeing all these doctors, it was both, it was very humbling, that to be able to be on the stage talking to people who I look up to very much. Yeah, going up on stage, the nervousness just kind of disappeared, and I was like, oh, like I'm home. Let's just start talking chiropractic. Let's do it.
Yes. You when you got up, because I remember my some of my favorite parts of Mile High every year is the speaker contest. I, you know, I just had this thought flash to do this. I saw advertisements for TEDx, people do TED Talks. And I saw advertising for speaker entries for that. I said, I wonder if we do a speaker contest for Mile High, would that be a cool thing to do? Where people think I was desperate for speakers or something. I said, no, look, this would be really fun to have someone who was a doctor and a student that never speaks anywhere that people don't know, as a quote unquote unknown, right? Enter. And I'll tell you, year after year, it's my favorite part, or one of my favorite parts of Mile High, because the speakers that present, they've put they never do this, or they've never done this. They have so much rawness, energy, passion, love. They put a lot of energy into preparing, because there's a certain amount of nervousness, maybe more preparation than someone who speaks monthly on different stages, right? So there's like this freshness that's really palpable. You got up and you were so centered and so confident, and you like just took your place and spoke with such certainty. You wouldn't know that you were a student, because you had just such like personal power that you held that space for.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah. And I think a really big part of that came down to knowing, like you said, knowing my topic and practicing a lot. But the other part was just like who I was speaking to was, like different doctors and different students. People were there. Some people really, really bought like new chiropractic philosophy. Others may not have been as familiar. But a part of what made the confidence kind of happen was seeing everyone and just, I don't know, like it felt very familiar almost, even though of course I'd never done it before, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great to have you there. So, as you're going through school, if you were to think like, hey, I'm in school, I'm going to do the clinic, and then I've got to open a practice. And, if you fast forward 5 years, 10 years after that, and there was like a dream thing, like my dream contribution, I'd really love to see myself doing this, like beyond just, oh, I open a practice and I open, and I'm taking care of people. If there was like hey, if this in 20 years was something I accomplished or contributed, that would be really kind of cool. What made one of those things be?
That's a good question. I think really just the main thing that comes to mind, because even now, like I think about school and I think more, of course, the more like structure of, okay, I want to maybe associate for a couple years when I graduate, and then the plan is to open up my own office, and then dream even bigger and have multiple offices. But when you ask that question, the thing that comes to mind is I want to keep speaking and doing the education part of things, because I think that without, there's a lot of hoops to jump through when it comes to being a student and to getting the DC degree, which I understand, like you have to do what you have to do to get that degree. But giving back in the like education, teaching, speaking field, I'm not sure specifically what that would look like. But just in that idea of, I think that it's so important, and a lot of students miss out on it, or even just a lot of docs practicing. Yeah, just that education part.
Well, see, you're going to be able to look back on this recording and then like, oh, I was asked that. And then I'm educating people in some way or teaching some way, and it was sparked. Well, it's really special, to be able to have the opportunity to connect and see the chiropractic spark in students, and how it's starting to you know light further for them, and know that they're going to go and do big things. And I know you will be. What is there something in particular that's a last message you want to share with the Mile High Chiropractic student and doc audience?
Yeah. I I think that just how everyone has their own innate, everyone has their own story. And you might think that you're like what I was thinking, where, oh, I'm a younger quarter, or I don't have the experience, or haven't graduated, or like I haven't had success in that means. Everyone has a story, everyone has something to say, and everyone has someone that they're gonna really speak to. And just how we can change someone's life through the technique and introduction of force, we can also change people's lives through the introduction of force of when we speak and talk. So your words are powerful, your actions are powerful, and it really just community is where it's at. Yeah, get connected.
Well, there's community within the cells of your body when you're unsubluxated, and there's a community within others when you can have a collaborative unsubluxated experience with them. So I really appreciate you stepping up. Not a lot of people, apply. I know there's tons that think about applying because they get messages from them, but not a lot actually apply. And so I want to commend you for actually taking that action step and having the courage to do it, and then actually show up and deliver an outstanding presentation on stage. I look forward to seeing you doing bigger things in chiropractic, and I'll tell you, when it comes around in this summer, just a few months before Mile High 13, don't let the 13 scare you. Actually, if you would like to be a student or doctor speaker, submit. Our team goes through the recordings, they score them, and then we, from that score, pick or select an entrance. So you too could be Eliza and be on stage. So, and we look forward to seeing everybody. Mile High, I can't believe it's 13. Mile High 13, all right, in September of 2025. And everybody who's listening, keep changing spines, lives, and minds with chiropractic, and join us on higher ground in September of 2025.